Sam, rewards is a term used in corporate as in talent and rewards versus skill set, work, labor, and wages or pay. So Manchin is also speaking the language of his overseers. Do you think Pelosi Schumer is trying to defang Progressive Caucus with this last move? Yeah, this is going to be a defining moment for the Progressive Caucus. It is hard to imagine there's a reason for it if they don't hold the line here. Right? I mean, where are you on that, Nomi?
But there's this, they always have a trick up their back. I don't know. I'm a trick up their sleeve, you know. I think the progressive.
Sorry.
Let's say exactly with the Scotch tape on the ass.
There's the trick up your bag. All right, continue. Yikes.
No, I was just looking at Ilhan Omar's tweets, for instance. I'm like scrolling through to see what the latest is in their lead, and they're going really hard, and I think that's fantastic. But even the progressives need to expand. I mean, there's so many different Democrats, which they have been doing, to be fair, who, like a Tim Ryan, for instance, like Tim Ryan, it's not going to be a great look, especially since he's running, for higher office, for him to not support the progressives in this case. It's a very popular, like Heartland America kind of bill. And I think this is a beautiful opportunity for progressives to really expand their universe and have normie Democrats, in Heartland carry it for them, which pressures, the Gottheimers and the Swazis to behave themselves.
Right. The messaging,
I don't know if that's happening enough.
I agree with the messaging should be like, we're supportive of President Biden's agenda. And we all made a deal to make sure that agenda came before the Republican-sponsored one. And we're going to support, our Democratic president. And, and then let Nancy Pelosi come out and try and explain it. I mean, honestly, I think it wouldn't be hard. Pelosi's out there alone doing this. And it's not like they've built any type of mechanism. This is a message that has been pounded for weeks, if not months, in terms of dual track. And so they should press the advantage they have that this has been the state of play for months. And Pelosi's trying to change it with 2 days. And there's just not a lot of opportunity for her to do that, it seems to me.
Well, and I think this actually highlights a dilemma on the left that we have as a movement sometimes kind of isolated ourselves and we've been at war with the centrists for so long that sometimes we don't realize that once we're in power, we actually have to build these coalitions rather than constantly burn things down because we need the votes. I mean, in this situation in particular, this is a beautiful moment for us to expand our power as a movement with, the Progressive Caucus. And use that as leverage against the bad Democrats. I think, it's Biden's bill, but I don't know if that's popular in Ohio. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just talking about what this bill brings to the people of Ohio, Republicans, centrists, not, and then say, big business is sponsoring these other people to block this bill. Who are those big business people? They're billionaires, the Koch brothers. I think it has to be more populist-y and just ignore the fact that it's the Progressive Caucus that's driving this or really fighting for it with Nancy Pelosi. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's true. I just don't know that's actually the case, but maybe. I mean, you push it. I mean, I think for a guy like Tim Ryan, I think I'm supporting President Biden's agenda. The polling is sort of caved in the past couple, maybe months, and then maybe that's part of the problem with independents. Yeah.
Also, just because the process has seemed so elongated that people are just kind of it's divisive.
I just think it's very simple. Bringing home a bacon. That's it. Politics is all about local bringing home bacon. And I don't think it's about Biden. I don't think it's about the progressives. I think that's Twitter speak. I think that's Beltway speak. I think that, if you want a moment to get this, you have to get other folks on board to give their messaging to their district, pretending that all these other games aren't even existing. And that leverages the internal fight, which is what's happening with, Josh Gottheimer.
It sort of feels like we're at the point where it's these people are so sequestered in Washington right now that they're really listening more to meet the press than they are to getting feedback from their their people. And so, like, on one hand, Kristen Sinema is having the Koch brothers basically run interference for her locally by saying that she's actually, like, except for the fact that she's not voting for the infrastructure bill, it sounds like she is. Like, it sounds like she's
point, though. They get it. They get it.
But that's because she needs defense in her district at this point. And I don't know that this is as active in the districts as it is in Washington, where people are just trying to get a sense of what's going on. I mean, maybe there's both things that need to happen, but it's hard to get a sense that there's an opportunity with 2 days left to go in and push certain constituencies. I mean, that's
Well, actually, this is a great moment where we see how the Democrats once again are not doing their job of organizing properly. It's one thing in elections not to organize properly, but it's another thing when you're trying to win these fights. They're won locally. Look what the Koch brothers are doing. I mean, I get it's defense, but like, they invest locally. They get their messaging out there, and you want to pressure a lawmaker to do something, or vice versa, or have, Tim Ryan, I use him as an example because he's running for higher office and maybe Biden isn't the winning message, but it sure is going to look good when, there's jobs being brought in to rebuild those roads and those bridges in Ohio, where, that budget has been zapped, by Republicans. It's a local conversation. It's what Tom Suozzi's doing right now. Tom Suozzi, say what you will about him, but he's being I'm getting his emails. Like, he's being very sophisticated how he's messaging to his district, which is Long Island and a little part of Queens.
However, we should just tell you this before we take this call. Jayapal just released a press release from the Congressional Progressive Caucus Twitter account. It was about 30 minutes ago. We just wrapped a meeting of our 96-member caucus, and we are clear our position on infrastructure and Build Back Better remains unchanged. We will not leave anyone behind.
Nice.
Well, that doesn't. I don't know how to interpret that. Yeah, like we won't vote on this. We're going to vote, but we'll see. There's one other sentence in that statement. We articulated this position more than 3 months ago, and today it is still unchanged. Progressives will vote for both bills, but a majority of our members will only vote for the infrastructure bill after the president's visionary Build Back Better Act passes.
A majority of us, that means, 96 Progressive Caucus members?
Close to 50.
Close to 50. Good. Jayapal's got the shit down.
Well, I mean, that is a pretty specific statement.
Yes.
To put out 36 hours before the vote, if you're not prepared to vote against it. I mean, I think they must have gone into the caucus and they said, "This is it. We either just disband as a caucus, or we do this."
Also, keep in mind here that this centrist gang, they're putting everybody else at risk for reelection. Like, that is why Nancy Pelosi, I think, is moving in this way, because it's not that they're at risk of losing their seats, which they are. It's that the others are at risk of losing their seats if nothing is passed, if nothing substantial is passed. Exactly.
I mean, I think like the interesting dynamic here is, I don't think that this, I am of the mind that if the Democrats do well in the midterm election, it's going to be because of negative partisanship. But this is the baseline that they have to start that negative partisanship on, because otherwise they're just going to bleed too much of their own people who otherwise, like, you cannot give your base, and just broadly speaking, a reason not to come out. And then from that, once you've established that foundation, then you give them a reason to come out. And I think the positive reason to come out is actually negative partisanship in this instance. Like, I don't think that they're going to pass this. And I would love to live in a world where if they passed exactly what I wanted them to pass, right? And it's not going to be that. Exactly what Bernie Sanders said to pass in this iteration, right? The $3.5 trillion. I don't think you're going to win an election on that. It's not sufficient. It's necessary, but it's insufficient. But if they don't pass this, there is no chance.
Yeah.
And it creates an opening. I mean, it's a little late for some of these situations, and some of them do have primaries, but this is I don't think this is what's happening, but it would be a great opportunity to leverage some primaries against some of these Democrats who are trying to play it both ways, who are in the Progressive Caucus, pretending to be progressive, but of course, are corporate hacks.
All right. I got to go in 2 minutes. Just one more thing. Schumer says going through reconciliation is risky to the country and is a non-starter on the debt limit. Now, I don't know if he's talking about going through reconciliation in terms of the 3.5 trillion. There is, my understanding is, and I have talked to 3 different people who know about this, and they have all told me some variant of a different thing. There is a specific reconciliation that is available for the debt ceiling. It's going to be a huge pain, but that is probably what they're going to do. But it doesn't seem like anybody knows. Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.